Planning and Zoning Commission?
He says yeah, go for it.
Gave up.
Okay.
We'll be sued over it.
So let's call this meeting to order. Never done that before.
You did it well.
You might put your mic up.
Authority. Oh yeah. Put that back on. So we're going to call our regular Planning and Zoning meeting for January 8th, 2014 to order. Can we have roll call, Ms. Perkins?
Commissioner Romero, Commissioner Lee,
Here.
Commissioner Garcia,
Present.
Commissioner Patterson,
Here.
Commissioner Lukes,
Here.
Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Commissioner Lucera.
Here.
So we have a quorum with one person missing, Commissioner Romero.
Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice.
Thank you. Let's see, does any of the commissioners have any amendments to the agenda?
Well, in talking to Ms. Perkins, we don't have minutes, so I think we need to,
So we're going to strike number 5.
number 5, or we can table them. I don't.
I think we'll just strike it and bring it up on the next, bring it up on the February agenda. And then,
should we add the election of officers? Should we spell it out that it's going to be part of number 9?
9A. So we'll add item 9A, which is the annual election of officers. And we'll strike agenda 5A. Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. So with that, we can go straight from approval of the agenda on to Citizens Forum. This is the forum in which any citizens may wish to speak. If they do, please limit your comments to less than 5 minutes or less at the chairman's discretion. Is anyone in the audience here to speak in the Citizens Forum? Is there, Ms. Perkins, did we have a sign-up sheet, or should we? There was one in the back? Let's do that.
Thanks.
Hold on one sec here for Ms. Perkins, and then we'll start from there. So Citizens Forum is really the place for citizens to step up and make any comments. If you're commenting on a particular public hearing, we will have a time slot for you to speak on that public hearing. Mr. Hahn?
Thank you, Commissioner
State your name
Patterson.
for the record, please.
Oh, my name
Yep.
is George Fritz Hahn, citizen of Taos.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for hearing me. A couple months back, a number of parciantes and mayordomos talked to me about the possibility of making some of the acequia concerns really well known. And so we requested to be put on the agenda with historic preservation, and that meeting was canceled because the agenda had not been put out in a timely fashion. And our second initiative was to meet with Ms. Perkins, the Director of Planning and Zoning. Ms. Perkins was extremely receptive and helpful, and we met before the holidays, as I recall, with Ms. Perkins, a couple of parciantes, and myself, and a mayordomo. And then at that meeting, Ms. Perkins asked if we could make a presentation to you. So that's what we're doing here tonight. My purpose right now is just to open that up for the mayordomos and parciantes who are here. Our goal was to give you, if you'd like, everything I'm giving you tonight, Ms. Perkins has. So our Planning and Zoning Department is quickly coming up to speed on this whole issue. The second thing that Ms. Perkins asked was a map of all of the different acequias within our town. Now, I only have this copy, and it's not very good, but it's the best I have. But Ms. Perkins has a copy in her office as well. Finally, Ms. Perkins asked for contact numbers. And so in doing our research, we have given her a list of all of the different acequias in the region, as well as the town acequias, and a mostly complete list of the commissioners and mayordomos on those ditches. It's important to understand that this ancient system is in need of our citizen support, your awareness, so that as developments come before you, you can appropriately consider this separate political entity of the acequia and our acequia tradition that exists here in our town. So enough from me. If it's all right with you, Chairman Patterson, and the commission, I'm going to step down. You don't need to hear from me. You need to hear from the mayordomos and the parciantes. Would that be okay?
Sure.
So I'm going to step down, and is there anyone from the audience who would like to speak? And Mr. David, if you don't have Mitchie's annotated statutes of water law here in the state, we do. So I'm hoping, I'm trusting it's there
Okay.
in the office.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there it is.
Commissioners, my name is David Rael, and I think that some of you members know me because I've been a lifelong resident of the county, and I have raised my family here in Taos. I'm a business owner. I teach part-time at the college at the University of New Mexico, and more importantly, I am the mayordomo of one of the oldest acequias here in town, the Spring Ditch. Priority date of 1800. This makes our acequia an ancient acequia. Any acequia that has a priority date before 1907 is considered an ancient acequia because not even the Office of the State Engineer had been established until 1907. And there's a particular statute that protects ancient acequias. And that particular statute very clearly states that ancient acequias shall not be disturbed. Plain and simple. Our acequia, because it flows almost right through the center of town, our acequia is located right behind west of LaBelle's clinic, that cleaner's place. And we are under siege, and we are at the point where, we are about to lose our acequia because of encroachment. Right now, we are under litigation with the Town of Taos, which I am not at liberty to discuss with you folks tonight. But I can tell you about other encroachment issues that we have been dealing with, and it's ongoing. Let me give you an example of a few. Down about a quarter of a mile from our acequia, a gentleman, I think not understanding the acequia culture, decided that he was just going to cover the acequia and direct the water to the Rio Fernando. Well, as soon as our acequia stopped flowing, I walked up the acequia and I noticed that this gentleman had covered the acequia completely, close to where the city had put a diversion channel. Well, I had to take this gentleman to court, to magistrate court, and the judge was very clear to him. He says, you open up that acequia. He says, well, I have an easement, to get to my land from somebody else. The judge very clearly told this gentleman, the acequia has not given you any kind of permission to cover it. So then Judge Betty Gonzalez at the time ordered this gentleman to uncover our acequia, and if he needed any kind of permission, he would have to go through us. Well, I told the gentleman, listen, maybe a culvert may be in order. Then he tried to dictate to us that an 8-inch culvert would be sufficient. I says, no. I have to, as a mayordomo of an acequia, I have a responsibility to convene the actual water right owners, the parciantes of the acequia. They are the ones that make a decision. So I convened my parciantes, and they said, yes, providing he puts a 3-foot culvert. That's a permission we are willing to give him. So I went back to the gentleman that covered our acequia, says, you have permission, providing you put a 3-foot culvert. Never did, but our acequia still, the encroachment is over. The University of New Mexico was the next person that tried to infringe on our acequia. They decided, because they were putting a big old addition to the hardwood, that they would direct their roof drain to our acequia because it happened to be convenient. Again, another battle. Here I go to the director of the hardwood, and I says, you cannot do this. You have no permission from the acequia to use us as a roof drain. Well, after a long battle and a lot of letters back and forth, they stopped. Then another guy that came in from Italy decided that he was also going to direct his roof drains to our acequia. But because our acequia flows almost right in the middle of town, it has been one battle after another to keep our acequia alive. A few weeks ago, I happened to tune in to the local station. I saw a meeting where you guys were discussing giving somebody permission, a developer, to build over a place where I guess there was an acequia on this property or something to that effect. I was appalled when one member of this group said, well, that acequia hasn't been used for X number of years. The only entity that has a right to forfeit an acequia, the water right acequia, is the Office of the State Engineer. Not this commission, not the Town of Taos, not an advisory board for the Town of Taos or this commission. If there's an advisory board that has been formed, don't be fooled. They have no authority over any acequia. The TVAA, the Taos Valley Acequia Association, has no authority to make any decision on any acequia. And I guess my message to you folks tonight is tread lightly. There are statutes that govern the acequias. They're all political subdivisions. Careful how you give permission to developers. Sometimes it's not to blame developers. Sometimes developers are naive about what governs acequias when they come from another state. But what I would recommend to you folks is contact the New Mexico Water, the Acequia Association. Have them come and give you guys a workshop on the laws that govern our acequias. Like that, you know, you are in a position to make informed decisions. Otherwise, this leads later on to litigation which shouldn't happen. This is costly on both sides. But if the decisions are made properly at this level, you avoid litigation for the city later on when people come out of the woodwork and say, well, wait a minute. This guy made a decision, one particular commissioner made a decision and gave permission to a developer to build somewhere close to where there was an acequia. but he didn't convene his parciantes. It is from the parciantes that the decisions come, gentlemen. And I think that I think that would behoove you folks not to bring somebody to give you some kind of a workshop on acequias. Let me give you the last example. And this has, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I decided to build on my land. When I went to the town of Taos, they gave me an application, and I was clearly told that I was going to meet code on whatever I built, and besides that, there was a lot of requirements. One of the requirements was that if there was an acequia anywhere close to my property, I would have to let the town know, and then I would have to go to the acequia and make sure that I was not in any way encroaching on this acequia. Well, guess what? From the time I started the foundation, the town was very diligent in their effort to make sure that I had enough rebar, the framing, the roof, the insulation. Never at one time did any of the inspectors ask me if there was any acequia anywhere close to where I was building. You know, we hear from the leaders that they're going to preserve. Most of the time we hear from a lot of our leaders that they're about preserving acequias. But in practice, it's not happening, gentlemen. That's really all I had to say tonight. Thank you for
Mr.
your
Chairman.
attention.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Commissioner Lukes.
First of all, let me assure you that this commission is very respectful of the acequia culture.
Thank you.
And I think that's a good idea. We all need to be educated on it. Just for my information, is the acequia that you were talking about, the spring acequia, is that where your shop used to be?
Right behind.
Okay. Did the condos affect the acequia at all that were built there?
Yes, the central station
Right.
was built right on top of our, right where our acequia starts, our point of diversion.
How did that get by the?
Well, you know, that was probably still
Mr.
dealing with
Chairman,
our litigation, so I
We
really
have
can't answer
litigation
that.
going right now with this group. This is probably not appropriate to have this discussion right now.
Okay,
Yes.
I had no idea. Stepping into fire here.
Yes, but, you know, I did give you examples of other encroachments that, you know, that we've had to deal with, but I am glad to hear from you that this commission is responsive and is responsible to our acequias.
Definitely. I think I speak for everybody.
Patterson?
Commissioner.
In a recent case that we had, the Martyrs Lane, there was an acequia there, and that was brought up before us, and we made sure that the acequia was protected. So just to let you know.
Thank you, and I'm sure that you folks will have a lot more issues that will come up when developers come or other people are building that where our acequias are, you know, our acequias have not been active for a lot of years, mostly because of the drought, and also because of other issues, you know, involving, you know, people that, you know, haven't used them because of the drought. And if they haven't used them, they probably haven't been maintained. So for a lot of people, it appears that the acequia has been abandoned, which is usually not the case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak under the Citizens Forum?
My name is Arsenio Cordova,
Welcome, Mr. Cordova.
Mr. Chairman, and members of the commission. I just want to get up and reiterate maybe some of the things that was said. The reason I'm here is yesterday the council voted to go to hire an appellate lawyer on the annexation of El Prado. And the acequias in El Prado, there are three that run right through the center of the annexed highway that is there. And at one time, the commission, I don't know if any of you are historians, I don't think so, but the commission had a position here for a historian. I consider myself a historian. I have my graduate work, and I've taught at the university on the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the state law, New Mexico government and politics and political science. So I'm very aware of some of the regulations. The reason I'm here is that anything that is decided here, and I know that I know most of you have been friendly to the acequias, but that doesn't mean that everybody who gets elected is friendly to those things. And we are a community at risk right now because we don't know what the appellate court might do or appellate lawyer might suggest about the acequias. But I think that it would be an excellent thing that Mr. Rael suggested, that maybe you have a panel of people come in and speak to you. We can always learn, from historians, and we can always learn about what's going on. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo is very specific, and all the acequias that we have here in Taos County are, supersede any of the laws that we have. The first form of government that, traditional government. Before acequias, the Native Americans used catchments. They didn't have acequias, but there was a place that was introduced on that, and there was a group of us historians that went to Spain to study the acequia cultures for over a month a few years ago, and we learned a lot from them about how they're preserving their acequias, what they were doing right, and what they felt they were doing wrong about preserving the acequias instead of the growth. But I would definitely, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo isn't that long a treaty. So, and they're readily available from the state. I think each one of you should order a book. They're free. So,
Thank you.
I just want to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. My name is Petra Quintana, and I am also a parciante on the Acequia Madre de Rio Pueblo. And I was happy to hear that you guys gave my ditch consideration on Martyrs Lane, because that is part of my ditch, although I live further from there. So anything that would have happened on Martyrs Lane would have affected my ditch. And that's part of the ditch system is, the ditch flows on down. So if a ditch, for instance, on my ditch, it comes out of the Pueblo behind the Fetchin Inn and down that area all the way down Los Fondos Road, up Dolan, and I think Birch even, Martyrs Lane. So anything that happens before it gets to my ditch affects me and the rest of the parciantes down the way. But one of the reasons that I came up is because when I was watching the last meeting that was televised, Mr. Alex Abeta kept mentioning condos that were on Dolan Street. Those aren't condos. I think the builder, the developer, the owner wanted them to be condos. I think he wanted to be able to sell them and either get out of town. I don't even know if he was in town. But because the permitting process was not done properly, he was not able to sell them as condos. So subsequently, they're apartments. And the fence to one of the section of apartments, their door is that far to my fence, to my property. So if any conversation is going on, I can hear it. But that's not anything to do with the acequia. But what does have to do with the acequia is that they put so many units on a lot that when it came down to doing the electrical and so forth, well, guess what? They didn't have any room. So Kit Carson decided that they were going to tap into my pole, which is on my property, on my fence. And, of course, my pole wasn't tall enough, so Kit Carson gets in their big trucks and they go on my property. They destroy of a piping system that my father had taken a lot of time to put in to go to his different gardens, busted up all my piping systems so they could put a tall pole to accommodate these apartments. Not only did they put this tall pole on my property, but they put it right on my ditch bank. So right now, I am not only having a battle with my commissioner, Charles Chacon, because it is up to him to make sure that these poles are taken off of my ditch bank, but I'm also having a battle with Kit Carson because they're telling me that they have an agreement with the Taos Valley Acequia Association. Okay. Taos Valley Acequia Association does not have any kind of authority to be giving anybody the right to be putting anything on my ditch bank. And I guess what I'm trying to, make apparent here is that any decisions that are made do affect people that are around, these structures that are going up. And it's really important, that we pay attention to what is going on and how it's going to affect others. Mainly because I don't want to have to be going into litigation with the town of Taos. I shouldn't have to be going into litigation with the town of Taos because they represent me as a Taos resident. But I will leave you with that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you. Commissioner Lutz.
I have a question for you. Just, I'm curious, where, the location you were describing, where on Dolan Street is it?
Okay, on Dolan, right across from, I believe it's Vigil. There's a street right off on Vigil.
I know
Okay, right across from Vigil, there's a cluster.
That's next to Mrs. Quintana's land there.
Yeah, Mrs. Quintana is right behind me.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else for the Citizens Forum? If not, I think we can move on to matters from staff.
All right, the first case we have tonight is case number PZ 2013-26. It's a preliminary hearing. It's a request by Norte Properties, who's the property owner, and Mark Yaravitz as the agent. They're requesting a site plan approval for the construction of an 18-unit apartment complex, currently known as the Tarleton Apartments. We had previously known them as the Dragonfly Apartments. The parcel is currently zoned both R14 and C2, and we had talked about the rezoning, and the rezoning is going to council on January 14th. The parcel is about 1.5 acres, and it is located at 402 Paseo Del Pueblo Norte within the historic overlay zone in the town of Taos. And I apologize, when we delivered the agenda packets, the notebooks did not go with the packet, and so there are some site plans at the very back of their applications showing the utility plan, the drainage, and the landscape plan. And so I wrote in my staff report, and I referenced those plans which you did not have. And so I would like the staff report to be part of the record and allow the applicant to make a presentation. Thank you.
Public hearing?
Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. My
And your
name is
name?
Mark Yaravitz.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I know you have seen this project over the last several months. Very little has changed over the course of the last few months. And as you know, that the process has been altered, and we're happy to participate in that. The zone change application that you've already approved, going to town council, no longer required a site plan, so it's coming here before you as a separate meeting now. The process has been, I think the word is bifurcated. I'm not sure that's the correct use of the word. In any event, we haven't made any changes since you reviewed it several times, and I guess I would open it up to questions, but let me just bring up an issue that is probably going to surface, is that in my due diligence, working with the Acequia Association to get a letter of approval for our design, I worked with Mr. Charles Chacon, who I was directed to as the person in charge of the Acequia at the very rear of the property. Unbeknownst to me at the time, that group has its own set of rules and regulations that I didn't know about, so I don't know. At this time, I think some of the issues are whether or not Mr. Chacon had the authority to write the letter that gave us the approval. I did go through the proper process and due diligence to try to discover who I should meet with to see if there are any issues. And I think that still is on the table as a question, having just listened to the reports from the need to improve and protect the acequias. I don't know if the issues are with our design or with Mr. Chacon granting us permission to move forward at this point. Everything else is self-explanatory. We did have a DRC meeting last Friday where we went over all of the utility plans and the landscaping and parking, met with the Mr. French Espinoza and the police chief and the fire chief and everyone that was required to be at that meeting, and I don't believe we have any issues with any of them. And correct me if this is only now, if we meet with the DRC, then we only have one public hearing for a site plan review at P&Z, is that correct? Unless there's any changes or need to come back.
This application is coming before the code change in front of the town council, and we can't assume that the town council will approve the code change either. So I am afraid that this is the preliminary hearing, and you will have to come back for the final hearing on the site plan.
We have to come back again on the site plan?
Yes.
If there are any changes or not? Okay, that's all right. We're happy to go through the process. It's only the...
Is that because the town hasn't finalized the approval of that?
Streamlining?
Right, the code change is scheduled to go before the town council on January 14th. And then, they'll review it and they'll decide whether or not they want to approve it. So that code change has not gone through, so we're ahead of that proposal.
Then why do we have a site plan
premature.
application?
Yeah.
Is there normally a site
This is
plan
a
application?
perfect example.
Anyway, however we have to work through this new process, we're happy to participate. If we have to come back next month, that's fine.
I believe that when we met with the DRC group, that they wanted to have some refinements made to some of these plans. They wanted to review them for
I wanted some
completeness.
larger prints and some things that we were going to reproduce for them. So we will be,
Right, and with the landscape plan, I wanted to see a few more amenities and kind of the irrigation and.
correct.
All
All right, so we'll come
We'll
back
also
with
need a
those-
maintenance.
We'll come back with any adjustments that are needed here for the next meeting. That's perfectly fine. And you were talking about some of the tree choices that we may want to eliminate that use too much water.
Right,
Okay,
and that's in the staff report.
okay. I did not get a copy of the staff report, so
Oh,
I
I'm
cannot.
sorry.
So I cannot reflect on it or respond to any of the issues in your staff report at this point.
Okay, and I did calculate the parking wrong. I said 10 parking spaces, there's actually 11. If you count them up, I counted wrong. I can give you a copy of the staff report, I'm sorry. Normally I send that to you.
Any questions from planning and zoning? I don't know what else to say at this
Mr.
point.
Chairman?
Commissioner Lukes?
I heard what you said about the acequia, but this is kind of a new element that was introduced here earlier, that we need to also watch that. I mean, you're taking the precautions and the setbacks to protect the acequia, but who's going to watch the utility companies? I think that's something that
It's a good question. How is that done?
I have no idea, but I think you need to talk to.
There are no utilities in the area of the acequia
That-
that aren't already there.
There's a buried power line right next to it. That does not interfere with the acequia.
It's a
Okay.
good point, though, that we'll have to be aware
Yeah,
of.
just watch it so nobody comes and out of your jurisdiction, that's what I mean. And then lastly, and it's just my own thing, and it's not a requirement or anything, I saw that you're going to use on your landscape plan some locust trees, Shade Master. Sunburst locust gives a nice color to a landscape. So if at all, if it's within your realm of possibilities, we asked for a sunburst locust for martyrs, and they look great. The bright yellow color. So, but that's just me. You don't have to do it if you don't want to.
We're open to suggestions. We haven't made any final decisions. But we'll be happy to look at that.
Thank you.
Ms. Perkins, we should welcome our new commissioner to our meeting. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the commission and to the public?
I'm Billy Romero.
Thank you, Billy. Pleasure to have you.
Sorry I'm late.
It's okay.
Sorry I'm late, but it's the nature of our business.
Ms. Perkins, is there a defined setback in the LUDC from an acequia?
It's my understanding that the setbacks may vary by acequia. The town code just makes a reference to basically what the acequia folks have been saying, that they need to get permission from whoever the
The law says
acequias-
10 feet on either side from the
Right.
center, which I believe we have a 10-foot setback.
Which law?
The law that was just presented by Mr. Hahn, where I read on the very bottom of that document he just handed out,
So
it said generally 10 feet, state law, generally 10 feet, except the town is considering other numbers on the very bottom of that document.
I know the town has a setback from a waterway. Is an acequia considered a waterway?
I think that we defer to whoever is getting permission to develop around that acequia. It's my understanding that the setbacks from acequias may not be the same with every acequia.
They aren't. Some places are 7.5 feet on either side of the acequia in the county. Some places are 10 feet. And I think the state law that I just read for the first time says 10 feet, correct? 10 feet from either side, or from the center
I
line.
would say I know that our LUDC defines it as it's a 20-foot setback from a waterway. So I would say for our next meeting, since this is a preliminary meeting, I would say for our final meeting, if we can, I'd like to verify what our LUDC requires. And do we have a and does the town have a does the town have any document to confirm which acequia runs across which property? Is this the acequia del Madre that runs across this property?
What is the name of this one?
It is if it's Chacon.
This is the letter that we have is from the acequia Madre del Pueblo.
That's my acequia. It's actually a lateral off the acequia.
Okay.
Chairman Patterson, in the county's consideration of revising their LUDCs, they're now talking about 10 foot from the center of the ditch with an additional 10-foot buffer
So that would be 20 feet.
on either side.
Right.
And that's in the county LUDC plans? Proposed plans? Okay, thank you.
So I'd say for our next meeting, if we can confirm what our LUDC requires, that'd be good.
I actually have the section here,
Mm-hmm.
so let me read it.
I would like to think that a waterway is a river of some sort rather than
Well, I think there's a
lake.
definition of
Is there?
waterway in the LUDC.
So there's actually a section 16.20.060.2 acequias. No development shall occur within the acequia right-of-way. Before developing a parcel of land that contains abuts or fronts on a acequia, the property owner or developer shall contact a mayordomo of the acequia to determine the acequia right-of-way. Mayordomos may be contacted through the Taos Valley Acequia Association. That's what our code says.
Good, thank you for that.
And I went to the TVAA, and they directed me to Mr. Chacon, because at that time, they mistakenly didn't identify a mayor domo, and gave me the information to contact Mr. Charles Chacon. Now, I know that's not appropriate, having had a conversation with some of these people about how it should be going on, but not quite sure how to handle that.
Who are you supposed to contact, Tina?
No, I mean, the commissioner of the ditch is supposed to assemble his parcientes and then make a decision, and I wasn't privy to who he met with and how he made the decision. I met with him several times and discussed what it is he wanted or didn't want, or how he wanted to protect it, including the size of the culvert in the front of the property. There's also a acequia in the front that's running, and I believe we have an 18-inch culvert going in there. That was what he requested, so we're complying with that. More than that, I'm not aware of.
Chairman Patterson?
Commissioner Press?
On the acequia, it seems like nobody knows who they're supposed to talk to. If they would make comply a list of who you need to talk to, who's in charge of what acequia, and the format that has to be done, because it's like, well, the person I thought I was supposed to talk to, or maybe talk to.
Right.
You know. So if they comply a list of who has the authority.
TVAA is supposed to have all of that information, and that's where the town code directs you to go, which is what I did. And when I spoke to Judy, I think is her name, she gave me the information, explained to me that the previous mayor domo was no longer in contact Mr. Chacon. So I went through the process as requested by the town for how you get the information, and that's where the letter came from. But I think TVAA needs to update their files of all that, so any person who wants to get the information could go to one source, which is, I think, helpful for everybody.
And Fritz Hahn actually is compiling a list. That's what he was discussing with the names of the contacts. And then I requested a map for the same reason, that we have a hard time knowing.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Patterson? Chairman Patterson?
Commissioner Lee?
To Commissioner Perez's point, would it be in our best interest to have a code provision as to default? For instance, if, like Mr. Rael said, we have the acequias are sacred, so we have mayordomos theoretically that are protecting them all, but they're not necessarily protecting them all like Mr. Rael is. In that particular case, when you have a gentleman like Mr. Tarleton seeking to go through the process correctly with the acequias, and he can't because he doesn't know who it is, perhaps it's in our best interest to provide a default provision with the town, so in the event that a mayordomo is unavailable or an acequia association isn't cooperating, that we have some kind of set default position of 10 feet back or 20 feet back, and then upon attempting to comply and then failing to have any communication work properly, we can make a decision by the town as opposed to dragging the process out for everyone.
Or even appoint maybe somebody that we could go to.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, we have a substantial acequia presence in our code. There are 13 or 14 references to acequias. Some require some zones that there be no construction within 100 feet of the acequias. Relative to how they get identified, this is a property owner provision. Theoretically, any of these plans that are presented, any applications that are presented, one of the threshold requirements is to identify the existence of any acequias. The DRC would be the appropriate place for that process to begin, to identify where there are acequias and to direct the applicant to deal with either the acequia association or whoever else they need to. In addition to the numerous references in our own code, the acequia system is in the comprehensive plan as one of the primary assets of the community to be protected, and there are statutes out the ears regarding acequias. So this area doesn't need any additional attention from us, I'm sure. I mean, acequias have been #1 priority of the state of New Mexico since before it was a state. And there is volumes of law about this. There's volumes of case law, and there's more than adequate provisions in the code currently to protect the interest of the acequias. So we would not be recommending any code changes, and the only process change would be to have the planning department renew its efforts to identify acequias during the application process so that they can be processed in an orderly manner.
Thank you. I have one question. On the letter from the Acequia Madre, it says it requires an 18-inch culvert. Do I see that on the civil plans
It's in
or
the
the site
front,
plan?
it's in the front of the property, at the front driveway.
Does that show up on these drawings?
I don't know.
I don't see it on the,
Is it in there?
I see the acequia on the front and the back of the property. I don't see it on the utility plan, and I don't see it on the grading plan.
Then let's go in here. They're currently, is it 18 inches right now right there? Is it 18 there? I believe there's currently an 18-inch culvert under the driveway, and we're just going to extend it further, but it does not, we will be happy to add it to the plans. Let me see if it's in a different set. No, it has to be on the engineering.
I don't see, do you see a culvert indicated in here?
No, I just see the acequia undisturbed in the rear.
But there's the acequia in the front, that's the one we're talking about, it's the one under the driveway.
Talking about in the front.
Okay, since we're coming back again, just make sure it's indicated on the grading plan.
Yes.
Yes, it is on the utility plan, but not on the drainage.
Do you see it indicated on the utility?
It's on the utility plan?
Yeah. Both acequias are on both ends of the parcel. Here. Oh, okay.
No, I don't see it on there. We'll correct that.
Okay. Are there any other questions or concerns from the commission? If none, I think we'll go, if there's, Mr. Hahn, we'll give the public a chance to step up and make any comments after the applicant's done presenting. Mr. Yaravitz, if you don't have anything else, I think we'll see if there's anybody from the public that's stepping up to speak on this project.
I had another comment, but it escaped me for the moment.
Ms. Perkins, is there anybody signed up to speak on this application?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Let's go ahead and take any public comment, Mr. Yaravitz, and then I'll give you the chance to speak again if you need to. Yep. Oh.
I need to get that packet of stuff back from you.
Just had it.
I'll get you.
Welcome to our meeting. If you'd please state your name and. Okay.
One of these is on the map.
State your name, please.
William Burden.
Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I hadn't intended to go into this, but I will. The acequia that they're talking about is the normal lateral. It comes under the highway, it comes under Paseo Del Pueblo Norte, right by between the Cochino Lodge and the El Pueblo Lodge. It surfaces right, if you go into the drive of the El Pueblo Lodge, you'll see it surface right on your right hand. It then, two things happen. It makes one angle that goes in front of the property, and then the other goes more to the southwest. When it gets about 3/4 of the way across the El Pueblo property, it splits again, and the lateral goes basically straight south behind the property. So you've got the one in the front and the one in the back, and the lateral, and it also continues on down and ends up as far down as, well, frankly, I don't know where it goes there, but it parallels Theodora Street and then makes a left-hand turn and goes from there. Now, I was out there on yesterday, and I measured where the lateral is on the back, and from what I see to be the fence line, there's an old fence line there. The east edge of the ditch is roughly 7 feet from the property line, roughly 7 feet. And you have in your information there and I've included it in the handout. You have the drainage plan shows the ditch going along the west edge of the property, and it says 10-foot rear setback. And it's unclear to me whether that's a setback from the property line or a setback from the ditch. So I think that's something you need to take into consideration.
Which page is that on?
The landscape plan.
Excuse, hold on 1 second. Commissioner Lee?
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to find the page. What page
Oh,
is it?
I'm sorry.
If you look on the very last page of the packet that Mr. Burton handed to us,
yeah.
there's a site plan. And on that site plan, there's an offset from the property line that says 10-foot rear setback.
I see. Got it. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Burton, you continue, please.
Yes. Okay. The thing I really came here to talk to you about is the STH that was prepared by Mr. Beta. And I think it is defective in several respects. It should be the first page, and I have highlighted the language that talks about existing roadway volumes and anticipated side trip generation. So what this means to me is existing traffic and anticipated traffic. Now, if you turn to the data that he's prepared, there were counts done on the 18th, the 23rd, and the 18th, 7 to 9, 11 to 2, and 4 to 6. If you try to compare that data with what's on the STH, I don't know how it relates, because he shows between 7 and 9, 2 in, 1 out. At the AM peak hour trips, it's 2 in, 8 out. There's no reference to the mid-date, which was 17 and 16. And then the evening, 8 enter, 4 out on the STH. On the back, on his data, it's 11 and 14. So there's no correlation at all between the data and the STH. Furthermore, as I understand it, there are 27 parking spaces for the development, 18 units, parking space and a half for each unit. No reference at all to those. If there was a reference, it would bring it up over the 25 threshold, which would require an STA, and that's really the point I'm trying to make. An STA is required. Now, there's more of a problem than this. As I understand the way this works, is the developer or his engineer is supposed to get concurrence from the town about when data is to be collected. And if you look on page 40 of the traffic manual that I've included, I've got that highlighted. As far as I know, that was never done. There was never any consultation with the town about when to do that. And why would you do that? Well, if you were dealing with a school, the times you would have a traffic data done would be different than if you were dealing with a restaurant or a bar. You would do it depending upon what's going on at the site. And furthermore, if you look on page 41, it says turn movements should be for a total of 9 hours. He did a total of 7 hours. He didn't do 9 hours. If you look on his survey data, you see that he did 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, and 3 hours midday. So he did not comply with the code in several respects, but he didn't do enough. He didn't gather enough data to begin with. Now, I have included with your packet a letter from Karen Todd at the Dragonfly, and she specifies that she wasn't even open between 7 and 9, which is when he collected some of his data, that her peak lunch period is between 12 and 2, and her peak dinner period is between 7 and 9. And the information she provided me was that for the average of the month of July last year, she did 58 and a half lunches and 29 dinners. So that is when the study should have been done. It should have been done when she was busy. And the 58 and a half lunches and the 29 dinners on a daily average would, assuming there's any traffic at all from the apartments, would bump this up over the 25 units needed for a side traffic analysis. She said when she was here previously, the first meeting that she was here when the variance was being requested, that she needed 20 to 24 parking spots to facilitate her operation. And I think the chairman pointed out that this overhead shot that you have color version of this, I think Chairman Patterson counted 18 cars in this photograph. So that 18 is consistent with what she's saying. She needs 20 to 24. Now the plan, as I understand it, allows the 28 for the development and 11 for everything else. And that includes the doctor's office and the Dragonfly Cafe. And based upon what Karen Todd's telling you and what you have a picture of, that's not enough. That's not enough for her. So my question, are you going to segregate it between what she gets to use and what the apartments get to use? And if you're not, if you are people going to pay any attention to it? And frankly, what's going to happen if you approve it as proposed vis-a-vis the people who are going to be coming into the Dragonfly? I don't know how many of you have ever eaten down at the Maria's in Santa Fe, but their entrance on the right-hand side, they allow parking. And what that means is down there, 2 cars can't pass each other, get in and get out. So is that going to happen here? You can say no parking. If people get in there to eat, or to use the apartments, and they can't find a parking spot, or they're going to park, obstruct the traffic. If that happens, what happens if there's an emergency? What happens if somebody has a medical event or there's fire? So I think, I'll just be very candid with you. I think this STA was prepared in a way to avoid doing a site traffic analysis. And whether or not you agree with my analysis, if you look at page 47, which is the last page of the enclosures, you'll see that you have the power, irrespective of what the traffic counts are. It says that if there are safety concerns along the roadway where the development is located, you can order an STA. And I would suggest that you don't have to go beyond that. You can ignore everything I said, and you can ignore everything that was submitted to you by the developer, and do it based upon a perceived safety issue. Now, why would you do that? You've got the post office next door. You've got El Pueblo Lodge. You've got the traffic going in and out of the Pueblo. You've got Alsops. You've got, I think, a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit. You've got limited sight distances because of the curve. I think it's ripe for the requirement of an STA. One other thing, the data was not even collected on the same day. It was collected on different days. So in addition to being short of the time frame, the three-hour periods, it wasn't even done the same day. And I think that's basically all I've got to say on the issue. I think there's a tension between what the developer wants to do and the present use of the property that can't be reconciled if you comply with the code as far as allowing 1.5 parking units for the development and the existing and demonstrated need for the restaurant. I mean, these figures came off of her monthly tracking for the month of July. She went through the month and totaled up how many lunches she had served, how many dinners she had served, and those figures you have in front of you. You have the aerial photograph that shows information consistent with what she's telling you, and it's also consistent with what she told you the first meeting we had on this, that she needed 20 to 24 units.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the audience that would like to speak on behalf of this presentation? Looks like nobody else is. Ms. Perkins, is there anybody else signed up to speak on this application? No? Mr. Hahn, would you like to speak?
Just briefly.
Mr. Hahn, hold on. Would you like to speak on behalf of this application?
Mr. James had brought up the statute, acequia statutes.
Is that, are you talking about the acequia statutes, or are you talking about something specific to this application?
If my memory serves, he brought up the acequia statute information during this presentation. Is that right, Mr. James?
Mr. Hahn?
Yeah.
Are you speaking in regards to the acequia statutes or something specific to this application?
Acequia statutes.
I think we covered that in the earlier conversation.
Okay.
So if it's specific to this application and the conversations we're having, I'd be happy to hear it. If not, I think we had
Thank
that
you.
conversation. Yeah, thank you. Would the applicant like to respond?
Mr. Abeyta, the engineer who did this for us, will be speaking in a minute. I would just like to amend what was presented, and because of the nature of El Pueblo and the Kachina Lodge and what's going on there, quite a few of the people that go to the Dragonfly actually walk. Just want to make that comment.
I have one question, Mr. Yaravitz. Is there, on any of your sheets, is there a development standards table that tells us what standards were used in the parking count?
1.5 per,
Is it in these drawings or on these site plans?
does it say so? Yes, I believe there is.
He has the total number, the total square footage, and then the total number of parking spaces. But he has not broken it down.
Is there a table on these plans that tells us what that is?
It's on the landscape plan, but it doesn't break it out like what you're asking, I believe.
So typically on a site plan for the town, there's a table which is the performance standards for the town, which lists the setbacks, the parking requirements.
It's on the landscape plan.
Okay.
You want to put it on a different sheet? We put it on the landscape plan because that determines some of your, you put the parking on the landscape plan because that determines some of your landscaping requirements. On the right-hand side under calculations.
So I see the number of parking spaces. Does it tell us the number of parking spaces that's required by the LUDC?
Not directly, it's 1.5 per unit under the LUDC.
So I think that'd be something good to have on your site plans. Would
Yep.
be the required development standards and how they're being met.
See, give the square footage of the restaurant and then what the parking requirements are, and then how many
Because
parking
I
spots.
think that'll circumvent your conversation about adequate parking. There's a required amount of parking for the
And the parking
dwelling
required
units
for a
and the
restaurant
commercial space.
is the seating area times the seating square footage divided by 100, correct?
That's right. It's,
I don't recall what it is, but I think it'd be something good to put on your plans, and that'll
I
help
will.
us in our conversation next
Anybody,
time.
but not on the landscaping plan, it should go on a different.
There should be a overall site plan.
Okay,
It's not utility or not grading and drainage or not landscape. It should be your overall site plan for the project that lists the development standards and
will do.
how they're being met.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
those would include setbacks from the acequia, site coverage percentages, all the development standards that are listed in the ruling zone, which is, I guess, with the zone change, that's C2 or
Correct.
R14? R14.
R14.
Okay.
Right now, they're showing 36 parking spaces.
And we don't know how many are required by that calculation, so that would be, I think that'll circumvent your parking number calculation, and we don't have to argue about it. There's a required number that's dictated by the LUDC.
Correct. Mr. Abeyta would like to discuss the creation of the STH.
Mr. Abeyta, please state your name.
Alex Abeyta,
Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do.
Sorry, we're gonna,
fine.
we'll tag team it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commission members, staff, audience. The,
Did you have a copy of what he gave us?
I have it here.
Do you have a copy of the one that's all the issues highlighted?
Well, I can borrow yours.
Why don't you take mine and I can look at it. And if you could probably just walk through and kind of address each one of those, that'd be great.
Prior to that, I want to talk a little bit about the STH. A few years ago, the town of Taos wanted to get a handle on how to deal with traffic and access, so the town actually adopted the State Department or Highway Transportation Department Site Access Management Manual. So what happens is any development we do today that accesses a town road, we're required to meet the town's code. In this project, we're actually accessing a state highway for which the town has no jurisdiction.
So what we did is we prepared this STH form to meet the State Highway Access Management Manual. Prior to this project pulling a building permit, we will have to pull an access permit from District 5 Traffic Engineer. So this form was prepared in accordance with their requirements. The town code does not require us to do both a state access manual application and a Town of Taos. So if your land use code says that we've got to do traffic counts in certain periods and that I got to work with Martha on when those counts should occur, or with French Espinosa, that's not correct. The only one I have to work with on this axis, Javier Martinez is the new District 5 traffic engineer over District 5. I will be working with him to get access to this project, and I don't see a problem with that happening. So the STH is not flawed. It's accurate. It shows the annual average daily traffic for the counts done in 1999 by DOT of 18,650. The STH requires us to show what the trip generation by this project will be, the 18 units. It doesn't require us to show the Dragonfly restaurant. It doesn't require us to show the doctor's office. What is this project going to add to that existing intersection? That's what this STH did. So it is correct. There's no mistakes on it. It wasn't flawed. It wasn't construed. It's accurate to what we need to do. It's 18 two-bedroom apartments. The counts that were prepared, there's a trip generation handbook that's a series of studies compiled throughout the United States. That handbook takes us to a section of studies for apartments, and it tells us what percentage of those turning movements are entering in the morning, what percentage are leaving. It also tells us that we look at peak hours between 7 and 9 a.m. and 5 and 7 p.m. It doesn't ask us to look at the Dragonfly restaurant as having a peak from 7 to 9 p.m. We're looking at the average peak hour throughout all the roads. So what I'm telling you is that STH meets all the requirements of DOT. As we submit this to them with the access manual application, if they determine we need more counts, we'll have to do them. If they determine that we need to go on and do a STA, traffic analysis, we'll have to do it. We know that in doing traffic analysis, it may say you need a left turn lane northbound, you may need a right turn southbound lane. Then what District 5 does is they look at, is there room for it under the current geometry out there? And they'll make that determination. So the access to this project is not an approval by Town of Taos, it is DOT, and we will get that approval. And that's all I really want to say on this. This report is accurate. Are there any questions on that?
So on the very first page, the trip generation land use category, those trip generations are off a table and don't necessarily correlate to the counts that were done on the property. That trip generation is saying what's added to this
For
parcel by the
example,
apartments.
near the bottom of the page, we show 2 entering, 8 exiting in the AM, 8 entering and 4 exiting. That is off the trip generation handbook.
Okay, and that's based on the number of apartments that are being added. So if you're adding 18 apartments, it's saying this in the AM, 2 will come in and 8 will go out.
Right. So basically, out of the 18 apartments in the AM, there will be 10 trips between 7 and 9 a.m. It has nothing to do with the restaurant, with the doctor's office, and when their trips are. Those are irrelevant to us.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions from the commissioners. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, hold on one second. So we had a public comment period, and typically when we hear a case, we hear from the applicant, and then we give anybody from the public a chance to present or speak, and then we give the applicant a chance to respond. So this isn't necessarily the format for the applicant and the public to go back and forth. If there's somebody from the public who'd like to speak, I think we can make a provision and go ahead and let anybody else from the public that would like to speak. But it's not a format for the public and the applicant to go back and forth. So if you'd like to present, you're welcome to come up and state your name and speak on behalf of this project.
I'm Ann McKenzie.
Do you swear to tell the truth?
I do swear to tell the truth.
Thank you, and welcome to our meeting.
Thank you. And I'm a neighbor of this project that we're talking about. And it seems to me in just this discussion from Mr. Abeta that when he talks about not needing to take into account the existing restaurant and doctor's office, that assumption is also made that the parking available to the restaurant and the doctor's office at this point will not be disturbed. And that is the assumption behind that statement, it seems to me. I know you didn't say that, but you don't feel that that's, because it seems to me only common sense to take into account the current uses. Thank you.
Mr. Sanchez, would you like to stand up and speak as well?
I'd just like
Please, Mr. Step up. I know we all know you, but we have to ask you to state your name.
Gene Sanchez.
Thank you. You swear to tell the truth.
I do.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question. When Fred Peralta was mayor, he assigned a group of citizens, engineers, architects, to do a exit study specifically for the town of Taos, because Taos is unique. Streets, narrow, in some cases not even any sidewalks. And this manual, or this study, was presented and adopted by the town of Taos. And to the best of my knowledge, it's never been rescinded or canceled, isn't it? Is it still in effect?
We have the access manual that was adopted by the town of Taos.
You do have that, and you do follow that.
Yes, sir.
Because this is quite a while ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when I was arguing against the development that took place below the Valverde Commons, which is referred to as the Valverde Commons. That access manual was completely ignored. Completely ignored. And I asked one of the planners at the time, well, what's happening here? And he says, well, I don't really know how to interpret it, which really surprised me, because it was in simple, plain, black and white English, and there was nothing complicated about it. So I was just wondering if that access manual was looked at. And I have another question. It seems to me, and this is the first time I've been to a P&Z meeting in quite a while, that the issues that are brought up by the citizens in the audience. And aren't all these particulars supposed to be analyzed by the planning department and made available to the P&Z for their evaluation? That's just I find that very curious. It seems like the people in the audience are the ones that question all this. Thank you for the opportunity, and it's good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. So with that, I think we'll close the public portion of our presentation, and we can basically have a discussion if there's any issues among commissioners.
I just have a question to clarify for myself.
Mr. Knight. Commissioner Knight.
Billy Romero.
Billy Romero. Sorry, Commissioner Romero.
Commissioner Romero.
Sorry.
According to Mr. Abeta, the traffic study and stuff has to be done through the state instead of through the town. What's the word I'm looking for? It's been a long day.
I think, Mr. Beta, I'm going to let Ms. Perkins answer this question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Abeta said that when it comes to needing the traffic study and stuff, it has to go through New Mexico DOT as opposed through the town, because we're entering a state highway versus a town street or byways. Am I correct at what I'm thinking?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that was the only thing I needed to clarify for myself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's actually, just to follow up on that, that's actually something that
Commissioner Lee.
we can't address at all.
Mr. Abeta is following the New Mexico state highway standards, and he gets his permit through them. So there was a condition with the Historic Preservation Commission that approval be obtained before they, pull a building permit.
Chairman Patterson?
Commissioner Perez.
I just had a question on when we were doing when we had the request for a change from what was it, R14 and a C1, was it?
C2.
C2. At that point, those businesses were existing, and now we're going to have the apartment complex, and I just feel that, maybe the two should be analyzed together, because they knew these buildings were existing, and now the apartments are going in, and, it's like they don't exist now, but they should be considered, in my opinion, I guess.
Staff has talked with the applicant about exactly that, and it came up with the Historic Preservation Commission as well. And the applicant had told me that they were working with the neighbors and trying to get some parking agreements so that for overflow parking there was a place for people soliciting the businesses to park, because we did have the same concern. I did write in my staff report I have not heard back on their success with getting shared parking agreements, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping that they'll follow up on with the final hearing.
Right, and on top of that, I know that the Dragonfly Cafe, they do use the parking space at the post office as, I don't know if there's an agreement, but they do use part of that, so that would alleviate the parking in the back, if there was an agreement there. And, just to, on the amount of dinner served, there's a lot of foot traffic there that, you can't consider that as traffic, because if you drive through right now, there's probably people walking there, so I think that's something else to consider.
Thank you, Commissioner Perez. I think just for the commission, the town has their site access manual. Mr. Abeda's moving through the steps to apply with the NMDOT for access for an access permit. As a commission, either the staff or this commission can choose to require an amendment to the study. They can choose to request an STH if you like. If just for the information for the commission, this is a site threshold assessment, an STH, and the STA is just a much more formal traffic study. It's also very costly. So we've done a number of them over the years. They're easily $4,000 for a much more thorough traffic study. And I think when those traffic studies come back, they're not always in layman's language. So we could require an STA if we chose. I'm not sure it would give any of us any more information than we already have about our own knowledge of the property and this project and the neighborhood. So just for your information. If you wanted a further, more detailed traffic study, we could request one.
Mr. Chairman, I'm ready to make a motion.
Any other conversation? So this, we've seen this application a number of times. We first saw it for a zone change, and this is simply for a site plan review, which we haven't in the past really broken out as a separate process or a separate approval. But this is the way this is formatted right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Perkins. This is a preliminary hearing for a site plan review, and all the items that occur at this stage have been written up in the staff report, and they're here for your presentation. And we've heard a number of other issues as well. This is a preliminary hearing. If we choose to approve this, it will go on to a public hearing. We can request the applicant to address any of these issues in more detail, if we like. And at that public hearing, that will conclude the site plan review. And I think this project has one more approval, which is their final approval for their zone change in front of the town council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I think that would conclude this project that's been around the block a couple times for us all. So, Commissioner Dukes?
I always felt that from the beginning that the site plan shouldn't have come before us. Anyway, it should have been a staff function, but it is here. And I make a motion to approve the site plan on the application 2013-26 based on findings of facts and staff recommendations.
Make a second.
Second?
Second.
Any other issues or concerns from the commission? No. I think the only thing that I would request to add to that motion would be that, that on the final site plan, that we see the development standards for the project and what's required and how they're being met.
And the culvert?
I'd like to see the acequia that's required, or the culvert required by the Acequia Association indicated on the civil drawings. And I'd also just like to see a clarification of the setbacks on the acequia. So on the site plans, we see the setbacks indicated from the property lines, and we should also see a setback indicated from the acequia showing the 10-foot setback.
Ms. Perkins, did you get all of that? Because
Yes, I did, thank you.
So I accept that as an amendment to my motion.
Second?
I resecond it.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Lay?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
I'll abstain due to conflict of interest, possible conflict of interest.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lukes?
Yes.
Commissioner Perez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero?
Yes.
6 approve, 1 abstains. The motion passes.
Thank you. With that, we can move on to public hearing 8B. Susan Michael?
Miko.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Miko.
Miko. Susan Miko.
Mr. Chairman, I have to abstain.
Commissioner Lukes, thank you. That's a good question. Mr. James, when there's a commissioner that abstains from hearing a case, should that commissioner step down or stay here as part of, we did?
We always stay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we addressed it before and we stay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. With that, we'll move on to case number P&Z 2013-24, final hearing for Susan Meekle. Mr. Abeta.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, at the last month's public hearing, we presented the application. We received preliminary approval to move forward with the public hearing process. There was two neighbors that submitted letters of concern, and then there was 3 neighbors in the audience. I met with the 3 neighbors in the audience outside after the presentation, and they're not here tonight. They were comfortable with the application as I presented it, and I answered a few further questions. Since the last meeting, I met with Luis Reyes over at Kit Carson. He had submitted a letter of concern. In meeting with him, his primary concern was, is this lot split going to result in a 2-story structure on the north part of this newly created lot, which is immediately adjacent to the east side of Mr. Reyes' residence. I told him I would get back to Susan Miko and determine what her preference was and try to get him an answer. I also spoke to Josefa Cruz yesterday. She's a former member of this planning commission. She owns 2 lots to the west or north of the lot 10. And her concern, she had 2 concerns. The first one was, does the approval or potential approval of this lot split open the door for other lot splits in the area? And of course, I told her the planning commission's direction is to approve each individual application on its own merits, and it may or may not assist with you splitting your lots in the future. Each application goes on its own. She then asked about an irrigation acequia that apparently exists along the west boundary of this lot. I told her that if the acequia is there, even though it hasn't been used for a decade or 2, the acequia will be left undisturbed. She indicates the acequia is slightly east of the fence line
on the Lot 10 side. With our setback from the property line, that acequia will be left alone or in whatever condition it's in today.
Mr. Beta, I'm sorry, I missed the meeting last week. Can I take a look at your applications just so I can see the site plans and stuff? Thank you. You continue.
So we are going to respond to Mr. Luis Reyes with an answer from the applicant, Susan Miko, that she wants to sell one of the lots to generate revenue to build a structure for her. She doesn't want to limit herself to selling the northern lot with a restriction of single story or the southern lot. She wants to see what the market does. So based on that, the answer we are giving Luis Reyes is that both lots will be allowed to build whatever the town code allows, whether the applicant chooses or the new buyer of one of the lots chooses to build single story or two story, that'll be up to them. So we will not agree to Luis Reyes' request of limiting the lot next to his house to single story. The buyer could do whatever they want. Luis does have a two-story at his place, and he's right up against the setback, 10 feet. So Susan Miko basically said, well, if he can do a two-story, why can't my lot be a two-story? So I'm just being honest with you as commission members that we want to have the ability that either or both lots may be single or two-story buildings in accordance with the code, which allows up to 27 feet of height. So that addresses Luis' concern. He probably won't like the answer. Josefa Cruz went on to tell me that I don't know if any of you did a site visit recently. She hired a contractor, and they cleared all the trees on her two lots. There was trees 2 foot in diameter. I don't know how tall they were, but she actually cleared all the lots. She's going to put it up for sale. And she liked the idea of this project getting approval because it's going to increase her value on her lots. And she understands that a future lot split may or may not be approved based on its own merits. So we believe we've addressed the concerns of Luis, of Josefa. The 3 neighbors that were here last week are not here tonight. And so pretty much all the neighbors are comfortable that we have an application that's reasonable. And we ask for your favorable consideration. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I'm sorry.
All right. Just to refresh my memory, was this going to be a second home or a primary residence?
Susan Miko is a medical doctor in Albuquerque, works for the federal government, and her plan is to build a residence on one of the lots for her and her mom to spend some time in Taos, whether that's a month in the summer, a month in the winter. So it's going to be a second home for her.
Second home.
And then the other lot, she definitely plans to sell it to whoever might buy it.
Any other questions from the commission? If none, is there anybody signed up to speak on this application? Doesn't appear that
I
there-
don't believe so. I do have a letter from Josefina Cruz
Okay.
that she wanted me to read into the record.
Please do so.
She's an elderly lady, and she can't go out at night. So she says, to the Town of Planning and Zoning Commission, case number 2013-24. I can't attend the meeting because I don't go out at night. Please read this at the meeting so it is of record in the minutes on tape. Both Vigil and Dolan went through the legal process to establish a subdivision. Does the Town of Taos have a legal document on file authorizing or allowing Town of Taos to make any changes to a subdivision? By granting a variance for the lot split, the subdivision survey plat, as recorded, will have to be changed. The lot numbers will change. The land on Dolan Street has an acequia water rights. Acequia dues are current. Mr. Abeta called me yesterday. Discussion, : 1. Request variance for setbacks. 2. Acequia. He will check on this today. And 3. Can a subdivision survey plat be changed? Number 3. I would like to know if it is legal to replat a subdivision. So it sounds like Mr. Beta's summary of the conversation that he had with her is accurate. And he did tell her that, and I will reiterate it, I will call her and explain to her that, you know, a lot split would have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they hear each case on its own merits.
Is it true that it's part of an existing subdivision and that subdivision would have to be replatted? Mr. Abeta, you can answer that question if you like.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, you have the application book. I need that.
Here. I have an extra
Yeah.
one. I probably have his.
If you open up the survey plat prepared by Lawrence Montoya, which is near the back of the book, you'll see that this Lot 10 we're asking for a lot split for is known as the Hill subdivision. Just adjacent to the west of that, for where Josefina owns 2 lots, is the Dolan subdivision. So yes, these are legally approved subdivisions within the town of Taos, but there's nothing in the town land use reg or subdivision regs that prohibits further lot splits if an applicant meets the requirements. So the answer to Ms. Cruz's question is that additional lot splits are allowed. There's a lot about 3 lots north of this Lot 10 where there was apparently a lot split at some time because the lot is only 0.1 acres rather than 0.2. Most of the lots in this neighborhood are 0.2 acres. But yes, the answer, to the best of my understanding, is that a lot split is allowed, provided it meets the requirements.
Thank you. Ms. Perkins, would you like to review your staff recommendation on this project?
This application is for a variance to allow a lot split on 0.22 acres into 2 smaller lots. It's zoned R14, multifamily residential. The R14 development standards require a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet, so the variance is required for lot size for 2 lots that are basically 4,700 square feet each. Basically, given the law, a variance is required to meet a hardship. So the applicant has to prove that there's something that differentiates the lot from the other lots within the neighborhood, which prevents the owner of that lot to develop the lot and to have the same use of that lot. And in this case, I don't see that. I don't see why this lot, given its size or shape or topography, is any different from any of the other lots in the neighborhood. Which is, what is interesting, though, is that the density, she could keep this lot as 1 lot and actually have up to 3 units on the lot and meet the density that's allowed under the zoning code. She would like to instead split the lot, make 2 smaller lots, and the result would be, what she plans for it to be, would be of a lower density. The staff report recommends denial on this, primarily because of what I said about a variance. A variance should only be given because there's a hardship, that somehow the lot is, the use of the lot is, the applicant can't make use of the lot such as the other neighbors in the neighborhood. I don't know if I said that very well.
Commissioner Lee.
It's kind of difficult for me to remember some of the details from the last meeting, and we don't have minutes. Is there any way you can give us kind of a recite some of what we were talking about at the last meeting? In a summary fashion? I know it's kind of out of order, but...
No, that's fine. The R14 requires a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet with an overall maximum density of 14 dwelling units per acre. So that means, and the R14 zone allows for single-family dwelling units, 2-family attached or semi-attached, multifamily residences, and/or a home occupation. It allows 50% lot coverage by all structures, a minimum of 20-foot front setback. The side setbacks are 7 feet, and the rear setback is 10. Most of the lots in this neighborhood, and I actually have a drawing, I think it's in the notebook, and I have a copy of it. Most of the lots in the neighborhood actually have only 1 house on them, so that's the character of the neighborhood. It's not high density. There's one lot that's Lot 8, which is up the street, which is a little smaller than the 7,000 square foot size. And then there's the condos, which are kind of round the corner on Dolan Street, which are 6 units on 2 lots. But other than that, primarily, they're single-family residences on 1 lot. Is that enough of a summary?
Well, I guess what I was going for, Chairman Patterson, was what our discussion was amongst the commissioners. I think, if I recall, and don't quote me on this, is there was a discussion of, it being more reasonable to have single-family homes in that area rather than giving them the opportunity otherwise to go for a 3-unit dwelling.
Yeah, I don't think we ever got that far because we had some neighbors that had some issues, and so I think what the commission directed was for the applicant to talk with those neighboring property owners, find out what their concerns were, and find out how they could be addressed.
Mr. Chair, if that lot split was allowed, would that second lot be held to a single-family dwelling, or would it still be able to have, being a 2-story, be able to do a multifamily dwelling on it?
The dwelling unit could be 2-story. I do know of duplexes that have one living space on the first floor and a second one on the top. Because of the lot split and you have those setbacks, it reduces the amount of buildable area. So the argument is that then you would have lower density because you would have those setbacks that would have to be met. But you could have, a 2-story dwelling.
Commissioner Garcia?
Just a couple of comments that I have, and I've heard, the reasoning behind the split and so forth, but I'm coming back to the neighborhood and what it looks like right now, and it's difficult as a commissioner to know what the future is going to bring. So to say that the owner will sell if we don't allow this split, and they can build a duplex or something larger, we just don't know that the case to be. And so I'm looking at, is there a hardship? And a second home to come a few weeks out of the year down to the Taos area, to me, is not enough justification for a variance. That's my opinion.
Any other matters from the commissioners?
Well,
Commissioner Perez?
Yes, when this person bought this piece of land, something in that neighborhood attracted her to that location, the type of neighborhood and all that, and now they're trying to change what was already existing, and that's just my comment.
Chairman. My comment is very similar to Dennis, Commissioner Garcia, is that it doesn't seem like there's a hardship at this point, and even though on our 14th, they can come in and put 3 units in that area, it doesn't seem to me that, as you said, the second home is a hardship. Apparently she has a home already in Albuquerque, and therefore it doesn't seem like a hardship to me, so that's my comment.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Mr. Rivera?
Last month, we discussed the 5 criteria for hardship, and let me borrow my book.
That one's, take that back.
Discuss that with you, refresh everybody's mind, but the criteria for hardship are 5 items, and I believe under item number I'm not finding it, but it's one of the items here. We state that the town code or the zoning ordinance created partly the need for the hardship or that. And the reason is R14 on .22 acres allows 3 units to be built. The owner of a lot that has an R14 density is basically told by zoning that you can build 3 units. She would rather build 2 single-family units, one for her and then the other person buys the other one, than to do 3 apartment unit or a 3 condo unit. So that was the argument of the justification for the hardship. So we do believe as the applicant that there is a hardship that's created by the zoning that is on the land, R14 calling for 3 units or allowing for 3 units, and we want to do 2 units, which is really less. We further stated that
Mr. Abita, is there anything stopping the applicant from simply building 2 single-family homes on a single lot?
Financial. This doctor wants to sell one of the lots. Whoever decides to buy either the north or south lot, she wants to take that money and throw it with some money she has to build her other unit for her on a cash basis. So there's also a financial concern there to take into consideration. Obviously, because she's a doctor, she doesn't have $180,000 cash to build a second home, but she wants to sell one of the lots to be able to make that happen. So there's also some language here in our findings of fact justification that shows that the existing Casa Escondidas condos over on the south end of Dolan has 6 units, and I heard earlier today from Petra Quintana that it's in fact no longer a condo project. So did they come to the town for lot splits for 6 units? I don't think so. So it in fact is still a condo. And
I think she said they were being leased as apartments.
Right.
They couldn't be sold as condominiums.
Right. So in fact, it is a density of R14. So that applicant was allowed a density of R14. My client is being told, well, maybe we shouldn't approve your density of R8 while the code, zone ordinance allows R14. No. So this would be an appealable item to the mayor and council in the event we get denied. We hope for a favorable approval and consideration. Last month, this commission gave us a 5-0 approval to move forward to the next public hearing. And tonight I'm hearing a couple different things, but once again, with all due respect, whatever decision you make is yours, and if for whatever reason we are denied, we will appeal to the mayor and council. Thank you.
Any other matters from the commissioners?
Well, on that R14,
Perez.
that's the maximum allowed, but that doesn't mean that they have to build, a condominium or whatever.
No, they
Yeah.
could build less if they wanted.
Yeah, they could build less. So that's not, in my eyes, that's not a hardship.
Yeah.
One more question.
Commissioner Garcia.
If we grant this variance and the lot split, the owner of the properties at this point could turn around and say, I decided I don't want to build a house in Taos. The variance has been approved, so that basically the owner can sell 2 lots at a smaller size.
Correct.
Okay, I just want clarification of that as well.
Commissioner Lee?
I guess, I think I brought this up at the last meeting. I'm kind of torn. I understand where some of the commissioners are coming from. But on the other end, the neighborhood is fairly dense. Some of the lots are smaller. And I'm for density, personally, I think, in these kinds of neighborhoods where it's already the trend anyway. And frankly, as far as, from a perspective of the welfare of our community, you've got the generation of more of an economy. You've got potentially somebody selling a lot and then turning around and putting that cash right back into the community, which is good for our economy, and it improves the value of that neighborhood overall. And, I know that we're sitting here as the commission trying to make this decision, but it almost seems to me that it would be the right and the duty of the neighbors to kind of make that decision of what they would want. And, we haven't heard any serious objections to it. In fact, I think there would be more objection to it being sold as as a total acreage rather than splitting because of the potential for the 3-unit dwelling. So I guess where I'm standing is I'm leaning towards an approval. I think that it would be appropriate to allow for this, despite the issues with it being smaller and despite the lack of the applicant being the creator of the need for the variance. So that's my position at this time.
Commissioner Patterson?
Commissioner Press.
I mean, we keep bringing up every case is on its own merit, but then on every case, everybody's bringing up, well, the units down the road and this other units, and it's not on its own merit. You're taking in another property into this project when this should be a separate standalone project.
Understood. I would say one way or the other, regardless of what our decision is, if we choose to approve it, in the motion to approve it, I think we should respond to the 5 criteria and how they're being met. If we choose to approve it and somebody chooses to appeal that decision, they would appeal it on the grounds that the most obvious, the practical difficulties, were not created by the applicant, because all of these conditions were in place when the lot was purchased. So it's not something that changed during the ownership of the lot that created these difficulties. So I think I would encourage whoever's going to make a motion, whether they make a motion one way or the other, that they address the 5 criteria for a variance and how this application either meets or does not meet those criteria.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Romero.
Somebody brought it up during discussion. What guarantee do we have that this won't be sold as 2 split lots and no building happen?
We have no guarantee. The approval runs with the land.
It just runs with the land, so.
Yep. Commissioner. Mr. Veda.
I can be if you want. Just one clarification. The question was brought up last month. What's going to prohibit the buyer of the second lot, whichever lot it is, from doing 2 units and going back to 3 units total? Well, the R14 times 0.11 acres is about 1.5 units. Technically, these lots would be limited to 1 unit per lot. So even if someone wanted to do a 2-story on one of the lots, it could not be a 2-unit apartment project. So the maximum density would be 2 single-family units rather than 3. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more discussion, we can entertain a motion on this agenda item. And our official motion maker is silent on this, so somebody else is going to have to step up to the plate.
I'm going to have to step in. And my silence.
Do we have the list of the 5 criteria?
The 5 criteria are in your staff report. So if you flip to the last, looks like it's actually the middle. Let's see, on page, they start on page 10. Criterion A, the variation is the minimum action necessary. Criterion B, the applicant has shown good and sufficient cause. Criterion C, failure to grant the variance would result in practical difficulties. Did you find them there?
Got it. Yes.
Okay. And I think you've got, I think the staff report basically gives you justification in one direction.
Right.
And I believe the application actually gives you reasons justifying it the other direction.
And I don't have the.
Here's a copy of the application. Let me find those real quick.
Might take me a moment to craft something. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or somebody else can jump in and make a motion if they want.
What page was that on?
Let me find it here real quick.
It's on.
Here they are. So here's the applicant's response to those 5 criteria.
Page numbers would be helpful on these. Huh? It's just this one here.
I make a motion on case 2013-24 that it does not meet the 5 requirements.
So I believe your motion would be to
To
deny
to
the application?
Yes.
And I think if you wanted to just, you could just reference the criteria in the staff report.
Correct.
Yeah, as your justification for that motion.
And I would second that.
We have a motion and a second. And with that, we'll take a roll call vote with a full staff of 7 commissioners, which is the first time that's happened in
Ms. Perkins,
close to 3 years.
would a yes be a vote? Yes.
That's a good clarification. So this is a motion to deny the application.
Correct.
So by voting yes, that means that you would deny the application.
Correct.
By voting no, you would simply defeat this motion, and another motion would have to come to the table.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
No.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson?
No.
Commissioner Lukes?
Abstain.
That's right, sorry. Commissioner Perez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero?
Yes.
The motion passes 4 yes, 2 no, and 1 abstained.
So that would mean the application is denied?
Yes.
And I believe, I think Mr. Abeda knows the rules of appeal.
I just have
Rules
one
of an
question. Was it a 2 public hearing process or a 3 public hearing? And since this hearing has denied it,
I believe this is a preliminary, there was
my-
a preliminary. This is your final hearing. So from this hearing, your appeal would go to the
so
town
now
council.
my window for appeals open, and what's the date, 15 days?
10 days, I believe.
I believe it's 10.
Yeah,
believe
I'll
it's
get the
10 days.
application from you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. Wow, our first split vote, 2014, that was exciting. Okay. We'll move on to case number P&Z 2013-20, final hearing. Mr. Frederick Burns and Elizabeth Jane Burns, property owners, are requesting a side yard setback variance from the required 7 feet to a 3-foot 7-inch side yard setback on their property located at 115 Roberts Lane. The property is located within the R14 multifamily residential zone. Would the applicant like to present their case? And this is I'll have to apologize, I missed last month's meeting, so there was a preliminary hearing, and this is the final hearing. So I believe you presented your case before. You can simply add anything if you'd like, or give us an update, or however you choose. Please state your name for the record.
Frederick William Burns.
Welcome, Mr. Burns. You swear to tell the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
The primary additional piece of information was there was some concern that contact and with the neighbor who was immediately involved with this variance, that we communicate with the neighbor, and we did that, and you have a copy of the letter. Yvonne Pacheco was here for that meeting and representing her mother's concerns. And so we sent a letter noting our addressing of each of the issues that Mary Pacheco wished to have answered. And that was, back in the middle of December. And I've since spoken to Yvonne Pacheco, and she was grateful for our communication and addressing her mother's questions about the variance. So that's about it in terms of new discussion or materials. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr.
Any of
Chairman?
the commissioners?
Commissioner Garcia?
I do have one. In reference to the letter addressing Mary's concern, what response did you get from them? Were they satisfied with what you submitted?
Yes. It was, I think it was mainly just answering specifically her questions, and she seemed to be, mollified that we were willing to work with her on this. And she had some questions about the drainage, whether it would increase drainage, and we assured her that that problem really would not occur, that the drainage off the studio would be towards the house, our house, and then towards the front of the house. It wouldn't come to drain onto her property. And so,
Mr. Burns, are those drawings of the
yeah.
application? Can I see those real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. Since I missed last meeting, I'll let these guys continue while I give them a quick look.
Correct me, the last meeting, last month, was there also an acequia that was discussed too, or? No, there's no.
There was a ditch.
A ditch, but it's not an acequia.
It's not.
Acequia ditch.
The term ditch is, I've discovered, a multifaceted word in Taos, but it was simply a drainage ditch. Okay.
Thank you. I have no other questions.
Any other questions from the commissioners? None?
Just on the recommendation
Commissioner
from
Perez?
staff? Just on the recommendation from staff?
Okay. Miss, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yeah, if we have any more questions. Ms. Perkins, would you like to review your staff recommendation?
You can open up the public hearing first.
We can. I don't think there's necessarily any order.
Either way, I can go after
Yeah,
you.
you can step up after Miss. Let's let Ms. Perkins go ahead.
Okay, the recommendation with this side yard setback is the same as my previous variance request. The applicant must show that because of exceptional or special circumstances that the applicant cannot use their land in conformance with the existing zoning requirements. The applicant's lot doesn't vary substantially from the other lots in the neighborhood, nor is the applicant prevented from building the studio on their property. This neighborhood is a little different in that a lot of the dwelling units were grandfathered in, and they do sit on lot lines. And so it seems more, the neighborhood is denser than the previous case. The neighbor actually has a garage on the other side that encroaches into their side yard setback. So it's only 2 feet from this property. So I think the applicant has made the argument that given the density of the neighborhood, that he would like to have the same use of his lot as the neighbors who are encroaching on their side yard setbacks. In addition, the applicant made the argument that he's rented a studio before that was narrower and he didn't have the light that he wanted, and so that's why he's asking for the encroachment on the side yard setback. Nevertheless, legally, I don't think it would stand up in court as a hardship. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. We'll open it up for anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this project. Mr. Abeda.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, I stuck around because I just wanted to make sure that my client was being treated consistent with other applicants. So the first question I have for Martha is, did this applicant provide a response to the 5 criteria for variance, such as I did?
Yes, they did. That's part of the application process.
Yeah, and once again, I haven't reviewed it. That's why I'm asking that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I think we'll close the public hearing portion of this case. And if there's any further discussion among commissioners?
I think I'll maintain my position that I had in the last case. It's very similar. It's, you know, the density of this particular neighborhood, although it doesn't seem like it was created anything but the actual applicant created the hardship for themselves. So that being said, I don't think that should cause them to not do what they want to do. So I'm in favor of approving it despite it not meeting potentially the 5 criteria based on other analyses by other commission members.
Okay, and I think, and I would simply say that, you know, if you were, I'd simply suggest that if you made a motion to that you address it as the criteria for the approval of the variance. Commissioner Lukes.
I echo Commissioner Lee's sentiments, and I think we can put just about any spin on anything. And you can say that in this case, the problem was created by the people that built the house too close, thus depriving this owner from his ability to do what he wants. And this neighborhood indeed is much different from the Dolan subdivision. It's much denser, 0 lot lines, encroachments, and I feel that we need to accommodate the applicant and grant him his variance.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner.
I'd like to make a couple of comments on this as well. We look at each case by case, and it depends on what the issues are and so forth. And on this, the way I looked at this is density, the type of neighborhood it's at. It's not a lot split. So in looking at that, and to me, there's no safety issues, I would support this particular request. So I just want to make a point of what I looked at when I made the evaluation on this.
Thank you.
Chairman.
Commissioner
I'd like to
Lucero.
make a comment that just simply because somebody else has created a wrong doesn't necessarily give another person to do the same. So I just want to bring that out, that just because somebody else is encroaching in the setbacks doesn't necessarily mean that you can do it as well, simply because everybody else is doing it. I just don't believe in that.
Thank you. If there's no further comment, I would entertain a motion.
Gotta live true to my reputation, so I'll make a motion to approve application 2013-20. And how did you want to incorporate the?
I think you should go ahead and either incorporate the criteria as submitted by the applicant. I think that would be reasonable to say.
Okay.
In exactly those terms.
And accept the argument, the criteria is submitted by the applicant.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lukes?
Yes.
Commissioner Perez?
No.
Commissioner Lucero?
No.
The motion passes. The side yard encroachment or side yard variance is approved, 5-2.
All right, second split vote of the year. I don't know.
And it's the first meeting of the year.
This is exciting. We'll move on to case number P&Z 2013-22. Final hearing for an ordinance adding conditional uses to the Town of Taos to allow certain agricultural uses in C1 and C2. Ms. Perkins.
Staff worked on this some. We have talked about this in several meetings. In the last meeting,
Oh, no, thank you very much.
the commission directed me to basically rewrite the ordinance allowing a conditional use permit to allow our agricultural uses within C1 and C2 commercial zones and allow gardening in all zones. I attempted to begin the rewriting of the ordinance because Oh, I have here again a special use. I'm so used to using special use. Because a conditional use permit goes with the land, it really needs to be thought through as far as the conditions that we put on it. As if you look at the code under, well, actually, we were talking about a special use permit. There's certain criteria, and you have to submit a site plan. And it is important that this be thought through as far as the language that we want to include. I'm not sure that the standard language in the code will accommodates everything that we might want it to for agricultural uses. I did add a definition for gardening, and the code changes at the back. I don't know if that meets what the commissioners would like to see as far as the definition of gardening. I left the agricultural use definition the same. But basically, because the special use permit goes with the land once it's approved, I thought it was important that we put some more thought into it before it goes to council. That's one of the reasons why we are talking about having a license, to get some experience with mixing these uses with each other, with commercial with agricultural.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Chairman Garcia, or Commissioner Garcia.
In reading this, does the staff support more of a permit process than an ordinance to give to an owner for a special use condition, a special use? Or they don't have a...
Staff would actually prefer just to do an annual license till we get some experience with how this is working.
Because once you do a conditional use, it runs with the land.
Right. Once you do a conditional use, it runs with the land. So you can sell the land, and the conditional use goes with the land. And so in the future, I don't know what kind of development will end up happening, what kind of commercial uses. Those can change in the adjacent properties as well. And so it makes it harder. And also, you know, to have, you know, not to make sure that there's not conflict between uses. Also, based on staff's limited experience, when we have given these special use permits or conditional use permits that run with the land, whoever is the new owner doesn't understand those conditions and often doesn't follow those conditions, so it creates enforcement issues. Or they want to add to those conditions. They want to make it even broader, like they want to increase the number of livestock or whatever. And so that also adds to the enforcement or coming back and asking for additional, like what's the difference between 5 cattle versus 6? And then I think that there's also this legal question, where do we draw the line? How do we decide that we'll only allow 5 cattle versus 6 on so many acres?
So, saying all this, and I read the staff recommendation, and the last sentence you have there is, staff hasn't had the time to draft an ordinance with the focus required. How much time would you think staff would need? I mean, this commission has kind of it's been dealing with this for several months, and I'm just curious what you think is the time frame. I'm not an attorney, so I don't know. I know you're here to protect the town and be transparent on what we're trying to do, but do you have a feel how much time you would need? I'm assuming you have to touch base with counsel and get some direction from him, but do you have any idea?
Well, I also need to talk with the town attorney. He has a lot of other things on his plate, and so I think together we need to work on this to make it legally stand up. As I mentioned, this difference between where do we draw the line between, say, we're going to allow 5 cattle versus 6 cattle. I mean, how does that hold up in court? Issues like that need to be thought through. I don't know if the town attorney would like to add anything to that.
This is his favorite project.
Really nothing to do with favorite projects, you know. If you want a defensible ordinance, somebody's going to have to come up with some research that we can put in front of the council that can be adopted as a finding of fact that supports the concept. And I would like to I guess I will beat a dead horse. If you want to set a limit of 4, then you need to have something that, if challenged in court, you can use as a reason for that, as opposed to 5 or 3 or 10 or 12 or whatever the number is. So this is not as not a matter of, I mean, sit down and write the verbiage. There's no doubt that that can happen, but I mean, I'm still at a loss to try and present to the town council some sort of factual, sustainable, defensible reason why we're choosing particular numbers for particular acres. And that's a research project, and to be honest with you, it's way down the list of stuff that I need to do right now. Now, we have been authorized funding to hire outside counsel. I don't know that I'm comfortable with spending $300 an hour for somebody to do that research relative to a problem that, frankly, I don't know that anyone's ever been charged with violating our gardening ordinance, if we have one. So I don't know what problem we're trying to solve here. But, I mean, it can be done. It's a matter of prioritization, and you know, we have multiple millions of dollars of stuff going right now that are at issue, and this isn't going to get my attention for a time, and I'm not sure that it's reasonable to spend $200 or $300 an hour on outside counsel to do this.
Commissioner Lee works for less.
Does it, Chairman?
Commissioner Lee.
Does it make sense? The isolated issue that I find is that nobody has any problems with the agricultural, meaning the gardening side of things, but the livestock seems to be holding everybody up. Does it make sense then to try to separate, try to get the gardening part through, and then we'll work on the livestock as we collect data and figure it out?
I think it does. I think there's a number of reasons that we want to see it defined as agricultural, and we want to see it defined as a allowable use. I think, just as, just like we have provisions in there for other conditional uses in the C1 and C2 zone, we have a use for bed and breakfast, with the following conditions. It could be agriculture's allowed in the C1 and the C2 zone. And we could, I don't know, I think in my mind, I'd like to see the agricultural use encouraged and permitted as a use, and I'm not tied to having any livestock or animals associated with it. So I think for now, if that allowed us to move this ordinance through and move it on, I'd like to see that and take the animal, take the livestock animal portion of the agricultural use out of it. And I think that just needs to be defined in language because, and I think if we'd like to see it done, I think we can propose the language to be used there. Commissioner Lukes.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good idea, but aren't there some good farming standards that could be our guide in determining the number of animals per acre? I would think that there would be. And
I think there is. I think the biggest thing we're up against is who's going to do that work to make that happen. Yeah. Commissioner Lucero.
Just like to say, let's keep it simple and just go with
the agricultural use minus the animals.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Okay. So I would say, if we want to do that, it's probably up to one of us to come up with some proposed language. I would say at this meeting we probably table this issue till the next one, and then we propose language in this ordinance. You've given us the ordinance. If we could propose some additional language for this for our next meeting. So I'd say keep it on the agenda for the next meeting, and for this meeting, for now, we table it. Is that fine?
I provided a definition of gardening on page 25, and then I find all these problems with it. So I actually edited it.
Okay.
But, basically what I was going to do with the gardening was to just take the livestock, the raising livestock or ranching activities out and allow it as a permitted use. And then if it's in a residential neighborhood, having it be compatible with residential environment.
I would be fine with that. I think I'd like to see it still defined as an agricultural use, so maybe we
Okay.
amend the definition of what agricultural use is, and maybe it becomes, agricultural and then agricultural and farming or something. Somehow disassociate the use of animals from the agricultural use, but still use, the term agricultural as the allowed use in the C1 and C2 zone.
Yeah, I wondered about that, given the public
We
input.
could refine our definition of agriculture.
Yeah, I think to that point, I think a lot of the public that have been outspoken about this thing, I think they take it kind of, it's as an insult to be considered gardeners, because that's not what they do.
Right, I got the same impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gardening's a hobby, agriculture is,
It's a job.
endeavor. Yeah.
Yeah, but that makes it harder as far as the code change, because you have to go through and you have to search for everywhere the agricultural use is used.
Right.
Maybe we can separate it out as farming, though.
Those are your notes.
Perhaps create a whole separate.
Right. So your input would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think with that, so actually it is a final hearing, huh?
Well, if we are tabling, basically, is what I was recommending, because we're just not ready to move this forward.
Okay, so can I have a motion to table?
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Commissioner Lay?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Lukes?
Yes.
Commissioner Perez?
Yes.
Commissioner Lucero?
Yes.
Unanimous again.
Roll call votes
Yes.
take longer.
Passes 7-0.
We can move on to matters from Planning and Zoning Commission. So typically in our bylaws, we hold elections every year, beginning of the year. We are electing officers. The two officers that we elect are the chairman and the vice chairman. And in the past, we've usually just kind of like run with one nomination and then take a roll call vote. I think what I'd like to do is see if there's, I'd like to take nominations for chairman and then nominations for vice chairman, assuming there might be more than one nomination. And then we'll take a roll call vote on each nomination. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. So with that, I think I would go ahead and take nominations for, let's do vice chair first. Nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to recommend Dennis Garcia for vice chair.
Okay, so we have one nomination for Dennis Garcia.
I'm a little surprised, but I would make a motion for Anthony Perez.
We have one motion for Anthony Perez.
So I'm not voting for myself. Oh, we're gonna make somebody mad now.
Okay. And with that, I would take nominations for chairman.
Should we ask them if they're willing to accept?
I would say we can, when we get to the voting part, we'll ask them if they're willing to accept, and if they're not willing to accept, we won't vote. Okay?
I'd like to make a motion for Justin Lee,
Okay.
Chairman.
Any other motions?
I'd like to make a motion to retain you as the chair.
Okay. Mhm. Okay. I'll make a motion for Commissioner Luke's to be chairman. Okay. So any other nominations? Okay. Let's start with chairman, since there's a couple of multiple nominations there. Justin, would you accept your nomination
I
as
would.
chairman?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do a roll call vote for Justin Lee as chairman. And Ms. Perkins, I could probably go. I'll be a voting member, though. You should do the roll call vote. Yeah.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this right. We're going to go through Justin, and then we're going to go through Doug, and then
Yep.
we're going to go through Pavel.
Yep.
And how's the voting supposed to go? If everybody votes 7-0 for each one?
I don't know.
Yeah, that needs to be clear. It does.
You can only vote once, and you can't vote for. Let's
For
see.
yourself. You can't vote for yourself.
That complicates it. So if you can only vote, actually, you can only cast one vote for chairman.
For all
Maybe we should do
three,
it?
for all three candidates.
Well, why don't we?
Is that how you want to do it?
Why don't you do it this way?
Okay.
why don't you determine the three people that are, if they're willing to accept, and then each person says the person as they go down the line, and then you would take a tally for each person.
Right. So
Okay.
if we start with Commissioner Romero, he would just he would vote for one person as chairman.
Right.
That sounds good to me. I'll accept my nomination, Mr. Lukes. Commissioner Lukes, will you accept nomination as chairman?
No.
No. Okay. Well, that takes two off. Okay.
Keep it simple.
So we're keeping. We have Justin Lee and Doug Patterson as chairman, and we can't vote for ourselves. So Commissioner Romero.
I'll vote for Justin.
Okay. I'll vote for Doug. Commissioner Garcia.
I'll vote for Justin.
Okay.
Okay. I'll vote for Justin. Commissioner Weeks.
Justin.
Oops. Hold on. Okay, Justin. Commissioner Perez
Doug.
and Commissioner Lucero.
I'm torn, but Doug.
I think that leaves us with a new chairman of Commissioner Lee, with 4 votes to 3.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We have 2 nominations for vice chairman, and that is Commissioner Garcia. Do we accept the nomination?
I would refer to Mr. Pettis because he's been on the council a lot longer than I have. I'm still learning the ropes, so if he's willing to accept that, I'd rather step down.
Commissioner Perez, would you accept vice chairman? Okay, so we have 1 person running for vice chairman, Anthony Perez. Commissioner Romero?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lee?
Yes.
Commissioner Garcia?
Yes.
Commissioner Patterson, yes. Commissioner Lukes?
No, just kidding.
I was going to vote no.
Commissioner Perez votes no. And Commissioner Lucero?
Yes.
Okay, so that leaves us with a new commissioner of Justin Lee and a new vice commissioner of Anthony Perez.
Well deserved.
Okay, with that, entertain a motion.
Couple things.
Are there any other matters from planning and zoning commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, question about the streamlining. The streamlining is going before the council, do I understand, at the next meeting, next Tuesday?
Yeah, January 14th, and if you want to attend and you think that there's going to be a quorum, we need to advertise that.
I have just one question. On the Tarleton matter, shouldn't that been delayed 1 month or after the approval from the council?
Well, the code allows concurrent applications, and the other thing is the way the code is written, it doesn't actually separate the zoning from the site plan. However, that's contract zoning, and I didn't want to do it that way. I wanted to try and separate them. So he's trying to do a dual track, which is allowed.
I'd like to say something. I think from the entire commission, we want to thank Mr. Patterson for his great leadership for the last, I don't know, has it been 3 years now?
Longer.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us, when I came on this commission, it kind of became a new commission, and a lot of us were in the dark, and I think Doug did a great job of leading the way, and made me feel a lot more comfortable in getting to learn this stuff. And
Make a second.
What's that?
I'm making a second.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And I concur.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I mentioned to you before, and I would like the commissioners to know also that what I proposed, maybe to look at another criteria for granting variances, which would be something on the order that if, in the opinion of the commission, we feel that the variance is in line with vision.
Think about that one for a little bit, huh?
With the vision of the town of Taos and is it benefits the community because it achieves goals set by Vision 2020, LUDC, whatever. So just to give us a little more leeway, because tonight was a good example of that we have departed a little bit from the 5 criteria on one, but not the other. So I would like the commission to have that
I think-
opportunity to.
I think the commission has that leeway. It just depends on how you interpret the criteria.
That's what I said before.
Yeah.
We can put just about any spin on the criteria.
That's
but
right.
this
It has
is-
to be defensible, so anyone can appeal that decision based on how well you support that criteria.
But what does the legal counsel think about adding another criteria such as?
The legal counsel thinks that the law is pretty clear on this, that the more discretion that the commission has, the more likely it's going to be found to be arbitrary and capricious, because whoever comes here doesn't really know what criteria they're looking for. So when you start talking about fulfilling goals, if the rationale is to be allowed more discretion, I mean, theoretically, the case law on variances is they should be, if you find one a year that fits the legal criteria, it would be rare. And the town attorney's office would definitely not be in favor of adding more discretion than this commission already exercises.
I have one more comment. Just like as an applicant comes here and they put together these wonderful binders for us, and it seems like they have a preliminary hearing, and we take that binder home, and then they have to present another binder the next month. I just think it's better that we would turn those binders back over and, alleviate some of the expense on the applicant. I mean, Doug, you go through that all the time.
Yep.
And
I think that's a good idea.
I think, paper, save,
And if we, if you choose to keep it, you can.
Yes.
I have a file with every case we've heard for the last 4 years, and I like it. I go back and refer to it quite a bit. Yeah. So it's up to. I'd say it's up to the commission. You can choose to turn those binders back over.
I
to
mean,
the applicant
at the
or-
final hearing, we can decide if we
Sure.
want to keep them or not, but, just as a preliminary hearing, we can give them back.
Right. Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Adjourned. We are.
What was the?
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.